Welcome to Get On With It, Inspiration for Life and Leadership. I'm your host, Sue MacArthur, President of Strategic Talent Management. We've all met them, the people who have a presence and a unique point of view that make us want to lean in and say, tell me more. In this podcast, we celebrate these people and provide a platform through which they can share their insights. Whether you lead a company, a community organization, or just your own life, we offer you these moments of clarity, hope, and inspiration. So let's get on with it. Welcome to the show. We've all met those people whose ideas stick with us, who don't just communicate, but they truly persuade. Today's guest has built a career helping leaders do exactly that. Henry DeVries is the CEO, what he calls the Chief Encouragement Officer, of Indie Books International, where he helps consultants and business leaders attract high-value clients through books and storytelling. He's created over 300 business books, is a Forbes contributor, senior staff writer at the California Business Journal, and previously served as president of an Ad Age 500 agency and assistant dean at UC San Diego. Henry, welcome to the show.
Sue, it is so great to be here and to be with you and to plant some ideas that'll be helpful.
I'm so excited. And this is particularly relevant to me because I don't know how many times we've talked about me writing a book and it doesn't happen. So I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say. But let's start with talking about your career. It's been an interesting journey:
Okay.
journalism, academia, agency leadership. What's the thread that connects all of those things for you?
The thread is what I decided in junior high. I said, I'm going to make my living as a writer. And I come
Mm,
from a family where no one had been to college. And so there was no person in the family who was a role model. Um,
mm,
at 15, I was hired professionally to write. And the editor was the editor of the twice a week town newspaper. And Al McCombs. And Al had two diplomas behind him when I'd come meet in his office. And one was a degree in journalism from Stanford and an MBA from Stanford. And I think that planted that seed where I go like, yeah, I'm going to get those kind of degrees.
mm. Interesting. You left academia to build Indie Books International. What was the moment that you said, hey, this makes sense?
Yeah, and I had been there for 7 years, and I loved what I was doing at the university. I was a graduate of that university. I was the president of the Alumni Association. I knew everybody from the president of the entire UC system up in Berkeley down to the janitor and just loved everybody and part of it. But somehow I loved these business leaders I was helping ghostwrite books for on the side. It was a side hustle,
Mm.
and they were frustrated by getting published. So I wanted to do that. Now, can I tell a little HR story? When
You
when
can
I
absolutely.
So I was the assistant dean for continuing education, and as I mentioned, past alumni president, and I'm a donor and a volunteer and very involved with the university. And my wife wanted to retire, and I went in with her in a meeting, and she wanted me to do the math. Should she take a lump sum payment at 55, or should she take the monthly pension payments and health care? And I did the math for her and I said, you should take the monthly payments and you should take the health care for 10 years until Medicare arrived. So then when we were done, the HR director, I said, say, I've been with the university for 10 years. Am I eligible to retire? She said, well, yes, you are. And I said, could you write down on a piece of paper what the lump sum payment would be? And she passed it across the desk to me and I looked at it and I said, well, this is a very important decision. Okay, I've made it. I want to retire from the university. And she goes, oh, I can't do that. You're going to have to talk to the vice chancellor of HR. Okay. So I have a meeting with the vice chancellor of HR. And she gives me 3 pages of the policy and procedure manual that I had to read aloud. And then after I'd read those aloud, she said, "Now I need you to take this form and have your spouse sign it." And I said, "Wait a minute. Um, I just did this with my wife. She didn't have to read the policy manual aloud. She didn't have to take some form home for me to sign." She goes, "Yes, but I don't have to explain to the chancellor on why she's leaving the university. And I'm going to have to explain you." And in further
Mm-hmm.
conversation, they thought I'd had a mental breakdown. Why? Because I had a career appointment, which is the equivalent of tenure. So I'm making six
Mm-hmm.
figures and as long as I don't rob a bank or do anything like that, I've got a job for life. And
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't understand why I would walk away to help all these business leaders who wanted to be published authors. And I said, I love the university. There's something about these people I love, and they need my help. So that's how I'm going to spend the rest of my working days.
Wow. That they did make that decision easy for you, though. That.
Well, they had other hoops I had to go through, and at the end, they had me agree to, I call it a consigliere agreement, where I would give them first it was 1 day a week, and then 1 day a month, and then on call, because I'm a relationship builder, and I have built relationships for the university uh, throughout San Diego and in other parts, and like they didn't want to lose that, so they wanted to draw on it. But I love the university and I'm still involved as a volunteer. In fact, I have a TV show on University of California television called Osher Author Talk, where I interview authors, and that goes out. So, and I'm a fundraiser for the athletic department, so I'll always be involved somehow.
Mm-hmm. Right. You built this business that you co-founded around the idea that storytelling can drive business. Why is story more persuasive, perhaps, than data?
Ah. That's a great question, and I have a great answer. So,
Right.
recent discoveries in neurosciences has proved that if you want somebody to make a decision, you don't approach the logical part of the brain, you approach the emotional part of the brain. If you want someone not to make a decision, give them lots of data, facts and figures to think it over. And there's a part of the
Mm-hmm.
brain that thinks things over. But decisions are rooted in the part of the brain that stories directly access. So I always say take a cue from the emotion picture capital of the world, Hollywood, a $600 billion a year industry all about storytelling. And it's to get people to feel something, uh, to make them think, to make them feel noble, to bring a tear to their eye, to make them laugh. These things are what you need to do as a storyteller, and it helps move people along and make the decisions that you hope they make.
That's interesting. And, I have often heard, if you want to write what you know. But you and I had a conversation recently, and you said, maybe not.
No, because professors don't write about what they know. They write about what they studied. Journalists, we don't write about what we know. We find somebody who knows it, and then we interview them and pull it out, and then package it so that a reader can benefit from it. We also said in journalism, the secret of great journalism is making people care that Lord Bottomley died when they didn't care that Lord Bottomley lived. So you need to be a storyteller as a journalist.
Right. I often hear people say, I should write a book. In fact, I've said it myself many times. What does a true spark that could be a book look like as opposed to just an interesting idea? How do you know it's
Uh,
book worthy?
Book worthy. Great. And those people who are saying you should write a book, do you feel the need to write a book? I've written
Mm-hmm.
20, and somebody asked me, he's like, why do you want to write books? And I said, I don't. I have to write books. I have to get this out of me. So if it's an idea that helps a group of people solve a problem, have a better life. There's only 3 topics, by the way, Sue. Health, wealth, and relationships. It's either about being physically better, um, to being more prosperous, and the other one is to benefit from relationships, and that's romantic, but also family and business. You're they've done the Blue Zone book, National Geographic, and they studied the people who lived the longest and had the most enjoyable lives. And one of the nine key elements of that was they had relationships. They had family relationships. They had personal relationships. I'm thinking of changing my title from Chief Encouragement Officer to CRO, Chief Relationship Officer.
Mm, yeah, I think you'd be great in that role.
Well, one of my
Where?
mentors is Ken Blanchard, who wrote The One Minute Millionaire and uh, formed an international training company. And he told me why he changed his title one day to Chief Spiritual Officer. So he's
Mm.
not about the day to day, but he's about the spiritual health of the organization. Um, so all of that was to say what triggers it is what do you know that can help people? How can you help people solve a problem? And the wisdom you have in that area, that's wisdom you should share.
And it seems like some of the most meaningful books may come from things like frustration and failure. Certainly, some
Um,
of the ones that I've resonated with is, hey, I messed up and here's how I fixed it.
Yeah, well, that's called the rebirth or the comeback story. It's one of the most
Hmm.
powerful stories there are, and how I raised myself up from failure to success in selling, which is from the 20s, was in that realm, and all these people. Up the Organization by Robert Townsend, the history of Avis, how they went from nothing to becoming number two and trying harder. And that's actually things would probably go bad if they became number one. They would lose their brand. But yeah, that's where it comes out of this frustration. And if you've cracked the code, if you've solved it, if you've got the combination lock that you can share with others. By the way, that's called the mystery story. If you have that, then that book can be very helpful to many people.
What separates a book that really resonates from one that just sits on the shelf?
I'd like to say the world doesn't need another crappy business book. That's for sure. And those are they're like these template books, or they're AI written, and they're a regurgitation. You got to be careful with AI too, because I think AI is like your drunk uncle. It can say a lot of wise things, but it can really put some crazy stuff out there too. So you got to really check it. Um,
Right.
so um, at the core of the book is it should be telling one of the eight great stories that human brains are hardwired for. Either it's overcoming a monster problem, it's a underdog story like a David versus Goliath. It's a wacky comedy solution, or it's a cautionary tale because it's a tragic solution that they tried that went bad. Then there's the mystery, the quest for a prize, a journey. I mentioned the rebirth comeback, and then the escape story, where somebody was in a normal place, they went to a crazy place, and how they got back to normal.
Interesting. I am trying to think of a book I've read that doesn't fit into one of those. And
Well, there's the
no.
crazy grandpa book, we call it, where it's just this meander. Well, we used to take the hogs up to Cumminsville for the fair, and they sure have good blueberry pie there. Not as good as the apple pie your Aunt Marge made. She married a drunk. That's kind of a grandpa story. Um,
Hmm.
that's based on a true grandpa story from my grandpa. It's
Oh,
like, where's this going? What is it? People are just kind of, they just
right.
kind of
But
throw
nobody's going to
everything
buy that
without
book.
an order. Yeah, without a master story, without an order, without where are we going here?
I mentioned earlier that I so often hear people say I should write a book, and I continue to say that myself. What separates the people who intend to write a book from those who actually do?
May I first step on your toes a bit?
You may.
You think it's a compliment when people say you should write a book. It's actually judgment. They're being judgy. Like, why haven't you written a book yet? If you're so smart, where's your book? That's what they're
Mm.
really saying. So now, the question was what we're separating who from what?
Separating those who intend to write a book from those who actually do it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have good intentions. A lot of people start. A lot of people have a project that they visit over and over again. The people who finish, they realize that writing is a team sport, and they get a teammate on the journey with them. And there's different teammates you can have, all the way up to a ghostwriter. I'm a ghostwriter. I've authored, co-authored, edited more than 200 published business books. So full on ghostwriter. Or
Mhm.
you can get something called a developmental editor. A developmental editor is a co-creator of your book, usually just thanked as an editor in the acknowledgments. But they go back and forth with you. They pull content out of you. They help you organize it. They tell you what the market wants. And then there's this energy that goes back and forth between the two of you. I like doing that. I do that a lot.
Mhm.
And then the third thing is a book coach. And basically, a book coach isn't a subject matter expert. Many I see aren't really that much of an expert on book writing, but they're somebody who's an accountability partner, like a gym buddy, who will talk to you
Mhm.
about your book and encourage you and give me another chapter next week and to keep you going there. Um,
Right.
there's a mental health facility in San Diego, and they had a very famous commercial, and it ended with the tagline, "If you don't get help from us, get help from somebody." So I think it's in writing too. If you don't get help from us, get help from somebody in getting that book done.
That makes sense. And I've had a mindset shift since I read a book called Who Not How.
Mm.
And I have kind of been following that path and the concept, and I can't recall the author's name at the moment. Um,
Dr. Benjamin Hardy is the psychologist, and then Dan
yes,
Sullivan is the business entrepreneurial coach leader who's had his coaching firm for decades.
right,
It's an excellent series of books. Who Not How, 10x is easier than 2x,
right.
um, and oh gosh, one more in that series, but I recommend it.
It may actually be on my shelf, but anyway, the basic premise of that book, Who Not How, is so often when we run into a problem or we get stalled, we immediately say, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? What am I going to do? And their shift is start thinking about who you can tap into to help you or to do
Yeah.
it for you. And I think that's true with the book.
Who Not How was influential for me too. I had a client. He is very successful. Um, let's call him Bob, not his real name, but he wants confidentiality on this. But he he joined his wife in a business. It was very successful. He was a wealth manager. He was so successful. He never had dinner with his family. He never went to a dance recital. He never went to a Little League
Mm,
baseball game. And he had a mentor come in and say, I think you're going to be dead in 3 years. You're going to be a very
mm,
wealthy, successful dead person in 3 years, unless you make some big changes. Um, and one of them was to get a who in there. This is like, if you've got 100 relationships, how do you manage 100 relationships? So you have somebody. So I hired a person. She's now my managing editor, and I trust her. And I call her Helpful Henry because she goes through all my emails. And if
mm,
if it's just a helpful answer, she just gives the helpful answer. Um, a lot of people on the inside say, "Oh, I know when it's her because there's 4 sentences in the email, and if it's from you, there might be one word." Um,
mm.
my wife said sometimes one letter, K,
Right, right.
writes me
Well,
an
and I
email
think
like this,
that,
and I say K, you know.
right. And I think that concept can apply to, finding ways to find the space to concentrate on your book is often it's, I don't have time to write the book. So, creating the space in your day, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes a day, um, that can be really helpful.
Sure. Well, I'll give you some ways. Deepak Chopra, he gets up, according to the LA Times, at 4 a.m. and will write for 2 hours and then gets on with the rest of his day. Some
Mhm.
people I've worked with, they spend 3 hours a week. Might be a Friday morning, maybe it's a night if they're a night owl kind of person. You got to go with your rhythms. Other people, I worked with a CEO of a pharma during COVID, very busy working on vaccines, but wanted to write a book. And I had him give me 1 hour a week. And for 45 minutes of the hour, we brainstormed what the essay, what the chapter would be about. And then I sent him off with a smartphone with a recording app, and for 15 minutes he recorded it. Then he sent me the recording, I transcribed it, I cleaned it up, and we moved on to the next topic. In 16 weeks, we had a 16 chapter book done. So
Wow.
there are different ways to get it done. Recording and transcribing is a key. I do it when I interview authors who are my clients, and then transcribe it and edit it because you don't speak like you would in written English, but you get the
Hmm.
tone. The big advantage is if I sit someone down at a computer and say, write, um, if they can do 25 words a minute, that's great. You can talk 250 words a minute. And a lot of these ideas you've said them over and over again to clients or employees. They're there. And there are
Hmm.
stories that you tell that are there in your brain. You just need to get them out of your brain onto paper so that we can clean up. I always say the first draft, any book worth writing is worth writing a first draft that sucks. The magic is in the rewrite, that second
Mm.
draft when you put polish to it, and that's where I want to get people to get to.
Hmm. I love that idea of talking it
Hmm.
through and recording it. I'm going to try that. So you have built indie books around the concept of it's a marketing tool. In fact, you wrote the book, which is right over your shoulder, Marketing with a Book.
I've written a series of books. This is how you hold your book up on social media so if they get
Yes, right.
the
There
picture,
we
you
go.
get it there.
A little Vanna
Oh,
moment.
if you buy a copy, I'll sign it. If you buy two, I'll come to your house and read it to you. Yes, so marketing with a book.
How does that work? How do you turn a book into a powerful marketing tool?
Well, I always say the book is the number one marketing tool for someone who sells their expertise. And then
Mm,
talking about the book is the number one marketing tactic. So you're going to impress more people. You're going to get more influence by talking about the book here on podcasts, at speeches, where people want to interview you and write about you. That's how the word gets out, and it's authority positioning. I like to say you can't spell authority without the word author. So an author is an
mm,
authority, and as we know from books like Authority Selling by Drew McClellan and Stephen Westner, that the authority is somebody who attracts people because they know their niche, they know the problems of that niche if you're in Canada, they know the problems, and then they have solutions that have been proven that'll be helpful. So your book gives you a lot of leverage in the marketplace to speak about your concept. And that's how
mhm.
you attract clients.
And it builds credibility, I would think. That if you were
Absolutely.
if you knew enough to write a book about it, there's a certain amount of credibility you must have in order to be out there in that way.
My business partner, Mark LeBlanc, who is past president of the National Speakers Association, he runs a speaking business out of Minneapolis. He's logged 20,000 coaching hours with people. And he has a story about a six-figure contract he got from a CEO who flew him out from Minneapolis to California to talk to him. And the conversation was just like, I've read your book. We want to hire you. We want to send you on a speaking tour. We want to pay you this amount of money. So what do you say? But yes, thank you. Um, Mark asked, "Oh, I'm curious, what part of the book convinced you to do this?" And the CEO told him the story. And Mark relayed to me, that story's on page 2. That CEO got to page 2 and said, "I got enough here." Um,
Uh,
I've been I've been hired by people who knew I wrote a book, knew I put on a workshop, didn't attend the workshop, but wanted to hire the guy who could put on that workshop. And people who've never attended my workshop um, say, "Oh, the four magic words in the English language. I know a guy." They say, "Oh, you want a book done? I know a guy, Henry DeVries."
mhm.
So
I've said that,
that's all the power. Yeah.
right?
Well, somebody told me they were in Amish country in Pennsylvania. Um, I don't know, bird in hand, intercourse. I don't know what city they were in, but they said they were having pie at this pie shop, and they were talking about, "Gee, I really want to write a book. I don't know how." And the guy at the next table said, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhearing. The person you want to talk to is Henry DeVries."
Hmm.
And so she called. We worked together. I said, like, describe this person. I said, "Did you get a name?" "No, I have no idea who this person was. I, I just, they might have heard me on a podcast and remembered the name.
Right.
Don't know, but that's the power of this.
Hmm. Right. So if someone listening out there has been sitting on an idea for years that, they keep thinking this could be a book, what would you challenge them to do?
Um, Take advantage of an offer I'm going to make right now because any friend of Sue's a friend of mine. I teach a course online 8 times a year called the Book Kickoff Class, and there's 7 questions you have to answer before you write a book. It's an easy first step. It's online, and if they email me and you mention your name, I will comp them into the class. The classes are on the website, indiebooksinternational.com/events. So they give you a date, but you have to email me and you have to mention your name. So
Okay.
that's how you get in.
That's the magic word.
I know it. A woman said, "Don't say I know a gal." It's just like, just say I know a gal.
No,
It's like like my wife's, the kids calling her dude or bro. That's, I don't know, man. Somehow these are becoming generic terms. I don't understand.
couple rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Name a book that changed how you think.
Um, Several. Can I give a couple? One is
Sure.
Managing the Professional Service Firm by Dr. David Maister of the Harvard Business School. When I was building this business 20 years ago, the precursor to it, I went to a conference in Mexico, and one of the speakers asked me to join him for breakfast and asked me what my problem was. And I told him, and he goes, "Ah, the person you're looking for is Dr. David Maister out of Harvard. And the book he's written is Managing the Professional Service Firm." And with Dr. Maister's permission, I took 1 page out of that book and have built a career out of it in studying how professionals, management service firm people, lawyers, HR professionals, how do they attract clients? What are the top 14 ways? I have a study on that, how they attract
Hmm.
clients. And that was that the seminal work was Meister. So that book. The other one, Sue, was a book called Die Broke. I read it when I was in corporate in the late 1990s. And his message was, um, you shouldn't die with a whole bunch of money. You should
Hmm.
create streams of revenue, of cash flow that you can live on that cash flow. So have cash flow and time to enjoy life. The other one was you need to quit your job right now, mentally at least. But and I quit corporate and went back
Hmm.
into the agency world on reading that book because it says a corporate job is an illusion of security. And not that owning your own business is secure, but uh, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I am responsible
Hmm.
for it. And also, I don't have to ask anybody if I can take an extra day in Chicago or if I could go to see my sister in Lake Tahoe.
Hmm.
I'm in charge of
Right.
me, and that's a huge huge benefit to be able to do that. So those two
Right.
books I like to encourage people to read.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Um, the best business piece of advice was Henry, and this was given to me by a publisher of the San Diego Business Journal who was a former naval officer, public affairs. And he says, Henry, you need to put favors in the favor bank. Do as many favors for other people as you can. And don't expect a quid pro quo. It won't be that the favor will be repaid directly from the person who put in. But when you're known as this person who does favors for people, other people will want to help you. And I've been helped so much along the way when I didn't have money. There was this one the Sandler sales training, which I really recommend. Sandler sales training. But I was a startup. We had no money. Uh, this course would be like $7,000. And I went to them and I said, your course is absolutely what I want to do. I cannot do it right now. Um, and I'll keep you abreast on when I have the finances to do this. And and this happened several times. They said, "Well, make me an offer I can't refuse." Like, this is
Hmm.
what do you do really well? I said, "Well, I am great at direct mail and letter writing and getting people's clients." They said, "Okay, give us $7,000 worth of that." So I did a big campaign and I said, "Okay, what were the results?" And they said, "Well, one." I said, "Oh, 1%?" He said, "No, one. Only one client came from your campaign, but it was Hitachi." So
Oh,
they got a
you only
whale of
need
a
one of
client
those.
out of this. Yeah, we're training, scores of people for Hitachi.
Wow.
We're good. We're good with our deal. So favors in the favor bank. Be
Hmm.
generous.
Right. I know that you have a lot of stories, so I'm
Oh,
almost afraid to ask this question.
okay.
But what story do you like to tell over and over?
Oh, I like to tell the Penny Reed story over and over again. The year is 2015, the place, Memphis, Tennessee. We're in a small 800 square foot apartment. Penny Reed is sitting at her kitchen table and she has a stack of unpaid bills. Those ones red, second notice,
Mm,
overdue. She has no idea how she's going to pay these bills. But Penny is a remarkable woman. And she said, well, if you're going to dream, dream big. In 2 years, I'll make $200,000 as a speaker and an author. And that's when I met Penny Reed. And I said, Penny, what do you know how to do better than anyone? She goes, oh, I've got this. And let me tell you, Penny's situation was a far cry from what it used to be when she lived in a 4,000 square foot home in Memphis, when she was part of her ex-husband's company. And that's where she got all her clients from. So no home, no company, no clients. She
mhm,
says, but here's what I know how to do. I can help dentists. Let me tell you, dentists are screwed up people. They borrow money to go to college, then they go borrow money to go to dental school, then they borrow money to open a practice, and they tell people they own a business. A business owns them, and they're going to
mm,
be in indentured servitude paying it off for the rest of their career. But I know how to give them cash flow and time to enjoy life. And I said, bingo, we have a model. Um, I'll fast forward through the story, but it ends with Penny in 2 years is making $200,000 a year as an author, a speaker, and a consultant. And she lets me tell the story with two caveats. One, I have to say that I don't make her ex-husband the nemesis villain of the story. He's not. They just didn't want to be
mhm.
married anymore. And
Right.
two, tell him it went up to $280,000 a year. So that's the power of this. I love that
Hmm.
story.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
May I share how
Well,
you get stories like that for your business?
right.
Because I didn't know, just Penny had been a client. She was off, seemed to be happy, and I asked for a meeting on the phone. And I said, could you tell me about your success since we did this? And she told me the story that the 200,000 a year. And uh, I said, how'd that happen? And we kind of backed through all the things I told her to do. She did, like Forrest Gump. Why'd you put that rifle together so fast? Because you told me to. So everything I told her to do, she did, and it resulted in this. And
Mm,
and then I said, could I have permission to tell that story and use your name? And she said yes, with two caveats, and those two caveats, which made the story even better. Um,
that it.
so and that story has brought me many clients because I'll have a conversation with people, and if their situation is anything like Penny's, I'll say, "May I tell you a story about someone who was in your position and who got to where you want to go?" And I tell that story. That's instant credibility. Um,
Hmm.
if you want somebody not to trust you, say, trust me. Trust me. We know how to help people like you. And there are no details about anybody they've ever helped or any details about their process that they follow or anything that is a specific or a measurable result. My
Hmm.
authors get 4 to 20x ROI. Some people say, be careful when you say that because it sounds unbelievable. It sounds too good to be true. But I
Hmm.
have people in writing, on video, tell their stories that that's happened. So you
Hmm.
have to get over that. It's too good to be true. But measurable results really are persuasive.
Hmm. It's the power of marketing with a book.
Power of marketing with a book.
What are you still trying to learn right now?
Ah, um, I'm still trying to learn the power of the segue to legacy. So I started this firm 12 years ago. Uh, this I never want to retire, but I wanted it to go on beyond me. So I worked with 6 different experts in the area, many of them authors of mine who wouldn't take pay to help me out. Again, that favor in the favor bank,
Hmm.
they wouldn't accept money, but they wanted to work with me. And we had 6 scenarios, and they said there's only one you're going to be happy with, and it was this family business that goes on. So I had to find somebody to come on board as a partner who filled gaps. And then my daughter Devon, who was employee number one here, uh, she was promoted to full partner. They're buying in to the
Hmm.
partnership, and so um, now I'm segueing to chief relationship officer, and then I'm also training somebody to be, what is that on Star Trek, number one? So, so I'll have a number one on chief relationship officer. That one of my in the succession plan, I explained to somebody, I said, your title is senior deputy editor, and did you ever watch the Miss America pageant? He said, "Yeah, I used to watch it with Bird Parks." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, the Miss America pageant." And when they when they crowned the first runner up, they would always say to that woman, "In the event that Miss America cannot
Hmm.
fulfill her duties, you will step in to fulfill the duties of Miss America." I said, "If the editor in chief cannot fulfill their duties, you're editor in chief until we figure it out.
Hmm.
You got it?" I said, "Got it."
Hmm.
So everybody now has a backup. Uh, Systems are the solution. I've got 36 different, I call them monographs, but they're how we do things, a process. And I was trained by Michael Gerber of the E-Myth and was even personally worked with Michael. And my people are surprised because when something goes wrong, my reaction is, "Oh, good. Tell me about the thing that went wrong."
Hmm.
Because we identified a flaw in the system, and then we're going to put something into the system that fixes that. So we don't have
Hmm.
that to worry about anymore. Um, so, it's embrace those things. You build a system, and you even have a system for building the system. So,
Hmm.
uh,
The art
that's
of
the
the
segue.
segue may be your next book.
I've been interviewed on it. People are interested in that. I have some great authors who helped me. That's their business, helping businesses
Hmm.
segue and doing all this. And um, Brad Fisher, I'd like to thank, and Rick Scruggs, I'd like to thank. These
Mhm.
people. I also got great advice from Drew McClellan from Agency
Mhm.
Management Institute and Danielle Newcomb, the president there. Yeah, takes a village to raise an idiot or something like that. I get a lot of help from my friends.
Right.
My mother used to say, my mother, the waitress from New York, whatever, she has all these sayings, but one was like, I'd do something wrong. She said, well, Henry, God takes care of idiots and drunks. And I don't drink, so I thought like, did she just call me an idiot? I'm not sure, but
She may
yeah.
have. Well, speaking of friends, I am so happy to have had this opportunity to talk with you, my friend, and I appreciate all of your wisdom and your encouragement.
As they say at Chick-fil-A, my pleasure.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you to my listeners. I hope that you have gotten as much out of this conversation as I have. Henry is a great storyteller and very talented in helping others tell their own stories. As he mentioned, he very generously offered complimentary access to one of his book kickoff workshops. Email him at henry@indiebooksinternational.com. That's INDIEBOOKSINTL.com. Mention hearing him on this podcast, and he'll get you signed up for free. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Until next time.